What if everything you were taught about kindness was a subtle form of domestication? What if the very tenderness you were praised for was, in truth, a leash delicately woven with moral applause and emotional guilt? Imagine, just for a moment, that empathy is not the highest expression of humanity, but its most exquisite disguise. A velvet curtain draped over a stage where your suffering becomes spectacle, and your boundaries are eroded by smiles that demand your silence. You've been told that to feel deeply is noble, but what if that nobility is the prelude to your own erosion? Can you sense it? That quiet betrayal masquerading as virtue, the slow suicide of the self in the name of understanding others. While you listen, absorb, and dissolve your own needs for the sake of peace, another rises, not with louder cries, but with quieter control. He does not ask permission to exist. He does not apologize for the space he takes. He shapes the world with the certainty of someone who never begged to be understood. Is that man cruel or simply awake? In the mirror of your restraint, does his unapologetic fire begin to look like freedom? Empathy, when untamed, does not only open you to others, it unzips the armor of your identity. And what enters through that sacred opening is not always love. Sometimes it is hunger. Sometimes it is the gaze of those who see your softness not as beauty, but as opportunity. Meanwhile, the narcissist is not distracted by the emotions of others. He is architect, chess master, storm. He knows that in a world seduced by the idea of mutual understanding, power belongs not to the one who listens most, but to the one who remains unmoved. Is that evil, or is it the raw architecture of survival? How strange, then, that the one who bends is praised, while the one who carves is condemned. But who changes the world, the empath or the narcissist? And what if your silent suffering is a currency with which their empires are built? You see, the question was never whether empathy or narcissism is good. The question is, which one still holds a knife when the lights go out? Which one still remembers their name when the storm begins? Which one refuses to drown quietly? So now you must choose. Will you remain the altar on which others find redemption, or will you become the fire that refuses to be extinguished by obligation? Before you answer, wait, because nothing is what it seems, especially not you, especially not them. And somewhere in the heart of that confusion lies a terrifying clarity, one that only those brave enough to question their own goodness will ever touch. But once you touch it, you will never see the mirror or the world the same way again. They taught you that to be good is to be soft, that to open your heart is to let the world enter, even if it claws at your ribs on the way in. You were told that feeling deeply is a virtue, but no one warned you that the more you feel, the less of you remains. They carved altars from your empathy and called it maturity. They dressed your silence as wisdom, but behind every nod you gave, behind every time you said, "It's okay," when it wasn't, something ancient inside you curled into itself and whispered, "I am disappearing." The world does not thank those who bleed quietly. It only drinks deeper. And still, you stayed. You became the listener, the absorber. The fixer of storms not yours. You were the one who held space while others screamed. The one who bent so far backward that your spine learned the language of sacrifice. But tell me, when you needed that same holding, where were they? When your voice cracked beneath the weight of invisible expectations, who knelt beside you? There is a truth buried beneath this imbalance, a cruel geometry where the empath becomes the stage and the narcissist becomes the actor. And the play? Always the same. One breaks, the other builds. One implodes, the other ascends. You think empathy is light, But what if it's a mirror that never stops reflecting the pain of others until your own face becomes unrecognizable? There is no virtue in self-erasure. There is no halo in abandoning yourself at the altar of someone else's wounds. The world has mistaken your softness for consent, your understanding for surrender. They do not see the war that rages in the silent spaces behind your eyes. The war between who you are and who you were told to be. Every time you swallow your truth to preserve harmony, you plant a seed of resentment. And resentment, when ignored, grows teeth. Meanwhile, he walks unbothered. The one who does not break for anyone. The one who does not flinch when others weep. You were taught to fear that man, to call him arrogant, cruel, cold. But deep down, something in you envies him. His clarity, his unapologetic presence, his refusal to carry what is not his. He is not weighed down by guilt dressed as compassion. He knows the secret. In a world that rewards a performance of pain, power belongs to those who refuse to play the martyr. He says no without explanation. He walks away without shame. He protects his edges like a sacred border. And you have been leaking through every pore, believing that to be loved, you must be empty. But what if you've been lied to? What if the path to wholeness is not more empathy, but boundaries sharp enough to cut through illusion? What if healing is not in feeling more, but in reclaiming the parts of you that died in the name of politeness? They told you that to be good is to never be feared, but maybe that's exactly why you're not respected. Maybe love without limits isn't love at all, but a slow annihilation dressed in warmth. And maybe the narcissist isn't a villain, but the mirror, not a model to emulate, but a warning. This is what happens when self becomes a god. And yet, how seductive it is to stand tall in a world that has made you crawl. So now you stand at a crossroads, torn between two lies. One tells you to give until you're hollow. The other tells you to take until there's nothing left but your own echo. But what if there's a third path? One not written in the scripts of victim and tyrant, savior and predator. A path where you feel deeply, but not blindly. Where you listen, but not at the cost of your own voice. Where your empathy becomes a sword, not a wound. You are not here to dissolve. You are here to remember, to wake from the trance of goodness, and walk into the dangerous, necessary work of being whole. And maybe, just maybe, that is the only true power left. And perhaps now you begin to feel it, not as a thought, but as a trembling no known can contain. That empathy, when blind, dissolves in narcissism, when unmasked, reveals not power, but hunger. The roles were never fixed. They shifted beneath your feet, waiting for you to notice that every act of kindness carries a shadow, and every moment of self-preservation a spark of sacred rebellion. You were not born to be devoured by the needs of others, nor to wear masks of cold dominance. You were born to stand in the storm and remember that your boundaries are not walls. They are altars. The mirror you feared was never cruel. It only reflected the places where you abandoned yourself. And now, in the silence after the tension, in the aching stillness beyond all names, something stirs. Not a conclusion, but a beginning, a remembering. That empathy, when rooted in clarity, is not submission. It is strength wrapped in velvet. And narcissism, when stripped of illusion, reveals a child gripping the illusion of control. You are neither. You're the one who watches both burn and rises. There is no longer virtue in vanishing, no honor in endless giving that leaves you empty. What once looked like love now shivers with the texture of old manipulation. What once looked like power now echoes with the loneliness of armor too tight to breathe. You do not need to become cruel to be whole. You only need to choose yourself, not as a rejection of others, but as a resurrection of your own forgotten name, the one you buried beneath duty, the one that now, finally, begins to whisper through your skin. So let the mask of false goodness fall. Let the idea that your worth is measured by how much pain you carry for others melt away. You are not here to be understood by everyone, only to be remembered by yourself. The fire you feared is not outside you. It is you, not a flame of destruction, but a return. And in that fire lives your permission to feel, to say no, to walk away, to protect your soul as sacred terrain. You'll know in your disappearance. And if something in you was cracked open by this truth, then do not leave it to close again. Let this moment mark you. Speak it. Share it. Be the echo that wakes another, like a ripple through the silent dark. Let your voice join the current of those who have stopped apologizing for existing. Like, comment, subscribe. Not for us, but for you, because this isn't the end. It's the sound of your beginning.